It's Spring Equinox, and that's the time when both sides of the hemisphere receive equal amounts of light. The word actually equi is equal and nox is night, so it's equal night. It's funny how we're emphasising the darkness rather than light in the word itself. But I have this beautiful glass ball just to help us focus our awareness today on equality or rebalancing, making equal those areas of life that are perhaps pushed into shadow, so that we're rebalancing. And I'm thinking in particular of the rebalancing of the masculine and the feminine in terms of the divine, in terms of our inherited cultural, spiritual understanding of the feminine and the masculine within us and in our story, the Christian story in particular I'm referring to. But firstly, have you seen my lovely spring flowers I have here? I'm going to be planting these up later. Actually, I've got a few outside in my window box, and I just brought these in. Some of the other plants that I use in here are fake, but these are real. These are actually beautiful, happy little white flowers, and they're bringing their joyful energy today. It's actually a rainy day. It's not that bright outside, but I've got the candle here for some light, and I'm going to be reading to you a little bit from the Bible and also from Mary Magdalene. So we're bringing a little bit of the Logos, the old traditional, with the divine feminine, bringing those together today for Equinox. Let's reconnect. In the story of the fall myth in Genesis, we have Adam and Eve cast out of the Garden of Eden, and from that moment Eve is scapegoated as being the means by which sin entered the world and it all went wrong. And so in the stories, the story of the lineage through Christianity, and certainly in the way that those stories of Jesus come to us from oral tradition and then find their way into canon, they are always the feminine is distrusted or not allowed into the inner circle of Jesus' followers. The disciples are all male. Mary Magdalene, who was undoubtedly his closest companion, is seen as just a helper, as one of the women that came perhaps just to have a domestic role in their lives, but not as his student. She called him master. She sat at his feet and learned from him in the Pistis Sophia. And I have here the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, and I'm going to be reading from that in a moment. I haven't decided even what I'm reading, so I'm going to see how that opens. Open it up, see what word emerges, and hope that it's got some relevance and speaks at least to someone today. I do have my Bible here, and obviously, I've actually been doing some painting at the weekend, and I've realised I've got some paint on there. I think it's only water based, so hopefully it'll come out. But I am going to read from John, and this will be a story you're familiar with, but it may be just an interpretation that's a little bit different. So it's John 21, and it's about Jesus being on the bank while the disciples go out in the boat. And I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." They all went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught nothing. Interesting that it's night, or what we said about equinox, equal night. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realise that it was Jesus. That's interesting, isn't it? That they didn't realise it was Jesus. It reminds me of when Mary went to the tomb and she didn't realise it was Jesus. Maybe this is about how we see. You know, Jesus often said, if you have ears, hear, and if you have eyes, see. So it's something to do with awareness. They were not aware of him. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you got any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your nets on the right side of the boat and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Throw your nets onto the right side. That's interesting, because we know now what we know about the mind, the soul, because psychology really is the science of the soul, is that the right hemisphere is what we might call the feminine side, the part of us, our brain, our mind, that is creative, intuitive, emotional, and the left side is the masculine part, that is the logical, reasoning, organisational, and so on. So if you think about that as a metaphor for perhaps the church, think about how the church developed since the days of Jesus, how it's very left brain, very much about organisation and about doctrine and trying to classify and understand. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but is it bringing the harvest? No. Throw your nets to the right side, switch brain sides, and then you'll see a difference. You'll just see how that opens up a whole new way of being Christian. Maybe this is a message that actually there is a new form of being Christian, and I say this for any faith really, a new way of being. This would apply to any religious organisation or faith, but to be more intuitive and more creative, and you can go to a new depth, and maybe at that new depth what you're going to harvest are going to be riches. I'm not thinking of fish here just as in commodities, or perhaps as it's usually, as that story is usually told, it refers to recruits, new Christians winning souls for Christ. I'm not thinking of it even in that way. I'm thinking of the harvest of everything really, and just being enriched in our understanding, in the opportunities, in the blessings, in opening up to new possibilities. Okay, so when something's just not working, switch over to the right side. Shall we have a look at Mary Magdalene? The beloved companion, the complete Gospel of Mary Magdalene. I've only had this a few weeks. I'm going to just trust what I've opened it at. I haven't read this. It's 41:1. At the end of that week, when all the disciples had gathered in the house at Bethany, the Magdalene came to them and told them what she had seen. That's Mary Magdalene, I think, Magdalene. And what Yeshua had said. But they were grieved and wept greatly, saying, "How shall we go out and preach the gospel of the kingdom of the Son of Humanity? If they did not spare him, how will they spare us?" So this must be when Mary Magdalene had seen the risen Jesus at the tomb. I just made a reference to that earlier, didn't I? Then the Magdalene, Mary, stood up, greeted them all, and raising her right hand, said to her brethren, "Only from the truth I tell you, do not weep, and do not grieve, or be irresolute, for his grace and that of the one who sent him will be entirely with you and will protect you, but rather let us praise his greatness, for he has prepared us and made us truly human. How lovely is that? Made us truly human. And of course, the truly human is when one is completely whole and balanced in the left and the right, the masculine and the feminine together. In terms of the soul is complete when we can entirely integrate the left and right hemisphere, the masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves. When the Magdala said this, she turned their hearts to the good, and they began to discuss the words of Yeshua. Simeon Kepha said to the Magdala, "Sister, we know that he loved you more than any other among women. Tell us the words of the Rabbi, which you remember, which you know and understand, but we do not, nor have we heard them." And then it goes on to chapter 42. I bet you're dying to know. I might keep you waiting. Maybe I'll keep that for next time. It begins, the Magdala answered and said, and I'm going to keep you on your toes and wait so that you have to watch the next video. Okay, so I will start with that. I promise you that next time I'm going to start with that. In fact, I'll open with that on the Friday. Okay, so join me on Friday for Let's Reconnect Live, and we'll celebrate Mary's words, and then we will share some reconnective healing together. Have a good week. Take care. Happy equinox.